who managed to get this so firmly entrenched in our culture for so long that it has now just become what everybody knows. What's more important is what everybody doesn't know. And what everybody doesn't know is that in the mid to late 1800s, good morning, everybody. It's me, Mitch. The fake news, the phony propaganda, the talking points, and the reach of those who profit from selling us crap and drugs that make us sick and keep us alive, barely, long enough to greatly profit from our suffering. Now, we can't stop it. There's nothing we can do about it. There is no concerted national effort to get our word out. We're the tiny little resistance movement, and we kind of work out of the shadows. And those of us that are trying to put this message out are doing it 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 views at a time, not millions and millions of views that a national TV audience gets, or the millions and millions of people that sit in front of their doctors every day, hearing the other message. Now, their message says red meat is evil and bad. Red meat will cause diabetes, and here are the tests from Harvard to show it. Red meat causes cancer, and here are the randomized control trials that show that. Your doctor has to be on board with this narrative that encourages people to eat, and I'll put the word healthy in quotes, healthy whole grains and healthy fruits and vegetables, and avoid that evil red meat, which causes us to murder animals and be bad, bad people. Now, we know better, but we forget. We forget how all of this happened. And all this happened over a period of over 100 years. And every human dynamic came into making it happen. From religious idiocracy to corporate greed to opportunism to just plain psychopaths. Every one of these things played a part in what eventually happened. And there are so many new people, so many, I see it in my subscriber base, new people coming into this optimistic, eyes wide open, seeing people just get better, heal themselves, lose weight, get healthy. Most of them are derailed. Most of their efforts are derailed by the onslaught of propaganda, talking points, and downright ignorance from the media, from the medical communities, even from their hospitals. How do we fix this? Well, sunshine. The truth has to be out in the sunlight. And nobody's there to tell the truth except the few of us that take to these revolutionary ways of getting information out in the face of a narrative that's just wrong. So for all of the people that don't know this yet, and for those of you who know this, it's important that we go over the highlights of the story of why Everybody knows that red meat is bad and plants, fruits and vegetables, healthy whole grains are what the human race should be eating. We need to know where this message came from, and we need to understand the corruption and the profiteering and the motives behind those who managed to get this so firmly entrenched in our culture for so long that it has now just become what everybody knows. What's more important is what everybody doesn't know. And what everybody doesn't know is that in the mid to late 1800s, a woman named Ellen G. White hurt her head and went into a coma. Now, I'm not going to be extremely accurate about all the dates. It's not important that you remember on what day and everything. I'm going to talk in broad strokes here because it's a huge story. But Ellen G. White came out of her coma claiming to have talked to God. Ellen G. White was one of these temperist kind of females, way ahead of her time, feminist type. And now she was God's personal messenger here on earth. And she had over 2,000 conversations with God. And in those conversations, God told her that men had evil thoughts, men had evil sexual thoughts, and that these evil sexual thoughts were caused by their eating red meat. And God declared to Ellen G. White that men should not eat red meat because it caused them evil thoughts and caused them to masturbate. Now, Ellen G. White was really, really serious about getting this stuff down. And she wrote over 2,000 papers about her conversations with God, mostly centered around the fact that men masturbated when they ate red meat, and that was a sin. Now, if you don't believe any of this stuff because it really sounds a little ridiculous, look it up. Just Google Ellen G. White and start reading. Your jaw will drop. Well, she needed some help editing all of her written works. So back in the late 1800s, she employed a young man named John Harvey Kellogg to work with her and edit all of her writings and compile them into books. And the two of them got very close. In the meantime, Ellen G. White was an incredibly religious woman, and she was the prime moving force that formed, you ready? The Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, Ellen G. White was the head of a church, and John Harvey Kellogg was one of her followers. She sent John Harvey Kellogg to medical school. He became Dr. John Kellogg. As things progressed and their anti-meat movement progressed, and more people signed on to their crusade to rid the world of all this masturbation-causing meat, they opened up a sanitarium in Battle Creek, Michigan. And who'd they put in charge but John Harvey Kellogg? Now, Dr. Kellogg had a brother. Their mission was to get people to stop eating meat and start eating a vegetarian and plant-based diet, because it stopped them from masturbating, which everybody knew was a sin. If you don't believe me again, Google John Harvey Kellogg. I think somewhere within the first paragraph or two, you'll see the word masturbation. This was why breakfast cereal was invented. There was no such thing as breakfast cereal before Ellen G. White and John Harvey Kellogg came along, and their you have to be a vegetarian or you're a sinful, bad person message came along. So now, in the early 1900s, we've got the Battle Creek, Michigan Sanitarium. And if any of you want to see a movie,
take Mr. Lightfall immediately to the yogurt room and give him 15 gallons.
Oh, no, I can't eat 15 gallons of yogurt.
It's not going in that end.
go watch that movie, because while it is a takeoff on it, it's as close to what it was really like in there. And Anthony Hopkins played John Harvey Kellogg. Well, they invented Kellogg's Corn Flakes, and they started selling the hell out of this stuff. It was addictive. It had carbohydrates in it. People put sugar and milk in it. So it turned, the healthy bacon and egg breakfast that everybody ate into something that was quick. You didn't have to cook. You could get a shitload of carbohydrates and sugar from it. And of course, people started to like this stuff. Other companies noticed that the Kellogg brothers were selling a ton of cereal, and they came in, Post and the rest of them, and they started inventing all new kinds of ways to make this breakfast cereal like candy. More and more sugar, more and more sugar. John Kellogg coined the phrase, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And the rest is history. Now, 100 years later, I'm seeing commercials on TV, and you've seen them, that are saying, cereal for dinner. They want us to belly up to the feeding trough and stick our face in cereal 24/7. It is mind-boggling. Now, the Seventh-day Adventists, it really took hold. And this is right out of a James Bond movie. Their influence started growing. They went into the medical business. They started the Adventist healthcare system, which we know and love today. The Advent healthcare system is a vegetarian pushing organization, an anti-meat organization. And as they grew, they gained influence on the board of directors of hospitals, the board of directors of medical schools. They contributed and supported all of these institutions so that they could gain some control in these institutions. They became politicians. They went on to influence the national dietary guidelines and the food pyramid. And this is why the food pyramid has 6 to 11 servings of healthy whole grains and cereals at the base, and an ounce or two of evil red meat at the top. They bought their way into everything. And if that wasn't enough, they are managing to completely take over the healthcare industry. They have Loma Linda University that they own, training doctors in their methods, demonizing red meat, praising healthy whole grains and healthy fruits and vegetables, switching us from a healthy protein and fat diet to a destructive and poisonous, mostly sugar diet. The medical community loves them because all these sick people are bottomless pits of insurance and federal money paying for their medical treatments. Everybody loves the fact that we're becoming fat and sick, standing in line at the drugstores and depending on everybody else to pay for it. They don't want to cure us now. They want to prolong our misery and our suffering so we can stay on the financial books as long as possible. I mean, it sounds, like I said, it sounds like a James Bond movie, but it is how it happened. There's no fix for this other than education and accepting the fact that this was a series of events that got out of hand, guided by misinformation, ignorance, and evil motives of all the players along the way. And we haven't even gotten to the cholesterol, fat is bad, Ansel Keys part of the story yet. But everything built on poor old Ellen G. White coming out of her coma, basically considering herself the next Messiah, and starting a chain of events that led us to where we are today. It is something that everybody that is either contemplating or on this new low carb, ketogenic, or carnivore lifestyle needs to thoroughly understand, needs to be able to point out the references to this and tell the story to anybody that will listen. Otherwise, you'll fall prey to the propaganda. And when your doctor tells you this red meat is going to kill you, and God knows His Eminence, your doctor, is a smart man and has to know everything, so you'll believe it. You will get knocked off like everybody else of your new regimen and go right on back to the diabetes, the dementia, the heart disease, the fatty liver, and everything else. At any rate, do a little research on the subject. Not only will you find out that everything that I've told you is absolute fact and undeniably documented, but you'll discover things that I certainly didn't have time to get into in one introductory video to how we got into this mess we're in today. Take the rest of the day off and eat meat.